Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
Last week, we mentioned a few zines. However, we didn't feel like that was enough, so we hope you enjoy RPGs for this special Zinequest Kickstarter Pickstarter for February 8th, 2021.
Our first zine this week is Desert Moon of Karth, which is a module for the RPG Mothership, which is itself kind of a zine-like RPG enterprise. This one takes that system, which is a space sci-fi horror game, and adds more of a space western vibe to it. So think Firefly, or they also cite influences like Dune, Cowboy Bebop, and several others, all of which we are fans of. And this one puts you on a remote moon with one small western town that you're going to be exploring, and has all kinds of cool features in it, including several factions that you can interact with. There are different day and night cycles, so certain events may occur at day or at night, and since you're on a moon, it's not necessarily going to be a 24-hour period of daylight. When it's dark or light out, it's going to change. There are also sand squids that are about, so you can go and hunt one of them down, or maybe you'll run into one as part of a misadventure of some kind. I love the idea of this. We played a little bit of Mothership previously, just basic Mothership, and there's a lot going on there, and one of the things that's great about it is that it is very free form. It's like a little bit bare bones in a good way, so that there's a lot of room for people to add their own stuff into it. And I like the idea of taking the kind of fun Firefly-esque Western vibes, but putting that under like a more realistic, harsh, intense, facing life or death at every corner kind of a game system, I think could result in something interesting.
I had a lot of fun with Mothership, and this sounds pretty cool. Also, it's very interesting. I love how when there's deserts, it's like, that's where giant beasts could roam.
That's right. It's the ocean of the land.
It's just enough, like sand is just smooth enough that we can either have worms or giant tusked creatures or squids in these cases that, just pop up here and there and eat people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all about. Well, if you want to run into some of those guys for yourself, you can check out Desert Moon of Karth. The PDF goes for $5, or you can pay a little extra for a physical copy through DriveThruRPG.
My first pick is Hope Is Not a Plan. This is actually a solo game. It's really a journaling game about how you have been put in charge of a major project, such as building a facility or maybe designing a new computer. And of course, management is absolutely confident in you, meaning that they expect you to do their grandiose task in probably a time frame that you are not allowed, that you would at least not find fair or reasonable. Of course, you're going to have to push your way through with dice, cards, and if you have available, a block tower game, aka Jenga, in order to try to balance and deal with all the issues that they're going to throw at you. It's one of those things that I think shows how zines can exemplify what probably isn't usually an RPG. It's not sci-fi or fantasy, it's management, and then that way they throw in those other things like the idea of, because if you think about the idea is all the pressure that you get put on for something that should not be so pressurized, because they put either unfair conditions or requirements or even time frames. So it makes sense that you throw in like the Jenga tower, just because you can imagine that if you've played Jenga before, where you're like, I need to move 3 blocks and there's only 2 that will work without tumbling the tower.
Right. Yeah. It's a good metaphor for the systems we sometimes have to deal with. Yeah, and Jenga towers have been popular and successful in RPGs in the past, usually horror themed, but this one, perhaps in its own way, sounds like a little bit of a horror theme. It sounds a little bit intense. I might be too stressed out to play this one.
I think this may go under a new title of horror, realistic horror. It's like not monsters, not murderers, just life.
Yeah, that's tough.
If you want to check this one out, it is going for $7 for a PDF, or you can pay $12 if you'd like a physical version.
I've got another solo journaling RPG zine for you next. It's called The Lighthouse at the Edge of the Universe. In this game, there is a lighthouse at the edge of the universe. It is there to help, space travelers and whatnot get through and keep ships from falling off the edge of said universe. And you play the role of the lighthouse keeper. And throughout your adventures, throughout your time taking care of this lighthouse, you're going to need to be keeping the light on, of course, maybe fixing things here and there, patching things up, taking into account the weather conditions that are going to be changing. And you are going to be sitting down, and you'll have a prompt. You'll have some cards, and you'll look at a new prompt, and then you actually flip a coin to find out exactly how it goes, and then you write down what happened and how you experienced it. And maybe, like I said, you're fixing something up. Maybe you run into a traveler, or perhaps you see a pod of space whales, is another thing that they mentioned might happen. I really, really like the idea of these small journaling games, and in this one they suggest that the best time to play it is right before bed. Like that kind of a game that has this. I imagine this sense of solitude, but and isolation, but in almost a comforting way. Like you're in this safe space, like a tiny house, and you have control of all the aspects of it, and you get to have this feeling of survival while staying in a relatively enclosed space. I think there's a lot of room for interesting discovery there.
I get that, but I just got to say this now. Whatever you do not insult a man's cooking while in a lighthouse. Trust me on this fact.
Yes, this is in no way related to the Lighthouse film that came out a year or two ago. This is just a regular old lighthouse that also happens to be in outer space. If you would like to take up this new job, you can. $5 for the PDF or $8 for a physical copy.
T.I.T.Á.N is a zine that's all about playing as students in high school trying to survive, well, all the troubles of high school. You, of course, will have to deal with being a popular kid versus maybe the more nerdy kid, and how you all interact with each other and all the drama that comes there. Oh, and there's mechs too. This is definitely a heavily anime-inspired one. I mean, even in the video where the guy's talking about it, he's using things like Gundams and I think Naruto characters as sort of the little figures, but it's still a fun world. It's the reason why it's been played a lot in those animes. And I just thought it was something that was cute and fun to play around with, especially if you like mechs. It seems to focus a bit more on the personal lives too, which would be a little bit nice and can be, I'm sure you can make it either more of like comedic, where it's more silly things happening around school, or maybe something much more serious and obviously maybe alluding more like Gundam, the effects of war on school. So, I mean, yeah, it has mechs, so pretty likely that I was going to pick it.
I remember in the Weave role-playing game, they have a setting that's very anime-inspired as well, and I do think there's a lot of a room for fun with a directly anime-influenced role-playing setting, because it lets you be a little bit larger than life, a little wackier, I think, than some other settings do.
What's also nice is this is actually being made in Spain, so if you speak Spanish, your pledge will come with both English and Spanish versions, so no need to find which one is best for you. If you're looking to go back into high school, but with maybe some robots, you can get the PDF of this for around $8.
Next, I'm looking at 3-Die-6, which is described as a dungeon creepy crawler role-playing game. It takes place in the world of the Roan, Roan, which are these strange little insect-like alienoid creatures. And in fact, they are inhabited by not one, but 3 different minds. There's kind of an interesting hive mind thing going on. So you will be controlling 3 different consciousnesses that are all inhabiting one body. And each one of those will have its own archetype that you will be choosing, and you will need to switch between them depending on what skills you need and what's going on. A lot of times you're going to be fighting, because that's a big thing in this world. It's a warlike world, and all these little bug creatures are running around trying to survive and hurting each other. And it's a brand new system. The 3-Die name comes from the fact that normally you'll have 3d6s, and you will roll them if you're just doing a normal skill. But in combat, each one will represent something different. One will be combat, one will be defense, and one will be an effect that will actually determine what the enemy does. Meant to be simple to play, easy to learn, as a lot of these often are. There's also a second book that is called The Egg Hunt, which is designed kind of as almost more like a choose your own adventure book, but it works with this system. And you can use that to play with a group, or you can play this as a solo game as well. Cool, interesting, weird little idea. I think the system sounds cool, and just the fact that, again, you are 3 different kind of minds inhabiting one body is very unique, and I would like to see how that plays out, and switching between mindsets and hopefully changing your skills depending on what you're doing.
I'm a little confused. If you could just clarify, is it like when you say you, do you mean one person controls all 3?
Yes, not
okay.
It's not multiple players. You control 3.
Okay, I wasn't sure because he also said solo mode. So, but yeah, I mean, the hive mind, something like that seems like a no-brainer for all fun, weird stuff.
Yeah,
I'm very curious to see how it would play out, especially with me being like, I just imagine myself arguing. I do enough already, but imagine this being like, we need to go get the food. No, that's too much work. Let's just stay back.
Yeah, it could get tricky with that kind of a thing. That's why hive minds are best left for science fiction. If you are, or I guess, insects, if you want to go ahead and check out 3-Die-6, you can. $7 to get you the PDF, and you can go higher if you want physical versions, or if you want to add on that extra book as well.
Tezca Sentai is a zine all about Mexican Sentai Rangers. It has a story about an ancient evil that was sealed away, but now this evil has returned to Mexico City, and up to the original Guardians to find new heroes to inherit their powers and stop this evil. This game is designed so there is up to 5 players, one person being the evil mastermind, your GM, and the rest being Rangers. The Rangers will consist based on a mixture of Ranger and Sentai and Aztec mythology. I like Power Rangers, and the Aztec theme sounds really awesome. And this seems like a really fun thing if you're interested in either one. It's sort of a really fun mixture that I don't think has been really seen at all.
No.
And honestly, Sentai teams as zines just seem like a really possibility. Like, I got the Aztec one. Someone else does one based on, fish or something. It seems like you could do a whole series of this.
Yeah, that's the next logical Aztec fish. I think that's correct.
Well, I was gonna say culture, another like mythology, but I'm like, there might have been done already. There's so many Sentai and Power Rangers. I gotta take a second to think.
Could be, but Aztec mythology is cool, and that's not something you see all the time in tabletop games. So that sounds pretty neat and interesting. About the GM, it sounds like the GM is more. Are they more combative in this? Is it more like a one versus all, or are they still kind of just getting the story through, or you're not? Maybe you're not sure from what they've said so far.
I guess it's one. To me, it felt like one of those things. Depends on
depends on who's running it.
Yeah. Some people might want to actually probably run it like a TV show. Mm-hmm. So like good guys win in the end. Where other people are going to be like, if they die, they die. Yeah. So choose your play group wisely. So the basic PDF is $8, but you can go up more for some physical versions, or they actually have a lower pledge level if they say like for those who are having hard times right now, which makes sense. So choose which pledge level is best for you.
No shortage of zines this week. There were so many, we were drowning in them. Had to narrow it down. Didn't even get any other picks in. But a lot of cool ones, as there always are during these events. This is only the 3rd one they've done, but it already feels like a grand tradition at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe there's one that we didn't talk about that caught your eye. They're super cheap, so you can just look at a bunch and grab a bunch up if you want to. Let us know in the comments right down below. You can tell us what you think about our picks, or if you have any of your own to add to the mix.
I'm very curious to see which ones you decide. Like we said, there's so many. I feel like it's like the double number of Kickstarters we see in a week because there's so many crazy zines with all weird ideas. But until we hear your picks, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Kickstarter Pickstarter Zinequest Edition. We want you to like and subscribe, and if you have the chance, take a look at our Patreon.
Thank you for being a friend. Subscribe to our channel and back again.
Okay.